Sports supporters, well, if you at any point tonight believe the Indiana Fever were going to win this game, then that's good on you. That's good on you. At no point tonight did I even begin to think the Indiana Fever were going to win this.
That is a man who watched this game with zero suspense. New York beat Indiana, 83-75, on Saturday night, and he is telling you he never bought the comeback for a single second. But the final score is the least interesting part of this. Over the next few minutes, he goes after the referees, the coaching staff, Caitlin Clark's minutes, and a viewership number he says was invented out of thin air. Start with how the Liberty actually won this thing.
The Liberty was like 2 of 17 or 2 of 18 from three-point range in this game. If they could hit any threes, the Fever would have lost by 25. They would have lost this game by 25.
He is right about the shooting, and the box score backs him up. New York was ice cold from the outside, but it did not matter because the Liberty lived at the free throw line. As a team, they went 33 for 40 from the stripe, and Breanna Stewart alone made 18 of 21. That is not a team that outshot Indiana. That is a team that out-muscled them and got rewarded every single time they drove. The Liberty won this game without their three-point shot ever waking up.
Ben Daniel live stream, Ben came right out and said it. They came out at halftime. Liberty started pressing the Fever. Stephanie White made no adjustments, and it was on from there. It was on.
Now, the coaching. Indiana led this game by double digits in the second half. They were up 66-62 midway through the fourth quarter, in control, on the road, against the defending champions. Then New York ripped off a 19-4 run, and the night was over. Stewart made 11 of 12 free throws during that stretch by herself. The complaint here is that, when the Liberty cranked up the pressure, Stephanie White did not have a counter, and the Fever simply came apart. Whether you blame the bench or the players, a 4-point lead in the fourth turning into an 8-point loss is exactly the kind of collapse that gets a coach's name said out loud.
We'll say this again. If we have not come to grips with the fact that this league is not going to call fouls in favor of the Fever, if the Fever as an organization hadn't figured that out and understand you're going to have to overcome that. You can't use that as a crutch. You know, we found out you're not going to get the calls in this league as an organization. It's not going to happen. And they're going to give the calls to the Aces, to the Liberty. Why? Because they got rings. That's what happened.
This is the argument that lights up every Fever broadcast. So, let's handle it straight. The free throw gap was real, and it was wide. His theory is that the league protects its champions, that Stewart and the Liberty earn the benefit of the whistle because they own rings. The fair version goes like this: Stewart is one of the best players alive at drawing contact. She attacks the rim relentlessly, and a team trailing late in the fourth fouls on purpose to stop the clock. All of that inflates a free throw count, with no conspiracy required, but you can hold two thoughts at once. The disparity was lopsided enough that Fever fans are allowed to ask the question, even if the answer turns out to be more boring than rigged.
I had Caitlin Clark actually, at one point, I said, ooh, in the chat, we're on triple-double watch. Literally 10 seconds later, boom, called for a foul. I said, never mind, we're off triple-double watch. Pulled her out of the game.
And then, there is Caitlin Clark, which is what this whole channel really orbits around. He had her on triple-double watch. A foul call sent her to the bench, and the watch was over. The accusation buried under that clip is about her minutes. He believes she is being pulled too early and managed too carefully, and he keeps crediting Fever beat reporter Scott Agnes for pointing it out. The innocent explanation writes itself: a quad strain and then a groin injury limited Clark to just 13 games last season. The team has every reason to protect her body. And when a game slips out of reach in the fourth quarter, you rest your franchise player instead of risking her in garbage time. But for a fan base that buys the tickets and turns on the broadcast specifically to watch Caitlin Clark, for minutes on the bench down the stretch feels like a swindle. And that frustration is the fuel for every video exactly like this one.
Subbed out at the 5-minute mark. It was more like the 4-minute mark. Right there, getting subbed out. I posted, well, 4 minutes and ride the pine. It's where we're at.
Look at the line she actually put up, because it complicates both sides of this. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists on 4 of 14 shooting and 2 of 6 from 3. That is a passing and rebounding stat line wrapped around a brutal shooting night. And he makes a basketball point here that deserves to be taken seriously, completely separate from the conspiracy talk. He wants Clark to drive more and shoot more from the mid-range instead of living and dying behind the arc, so that one cold three-point night does not take her entire offense down with it. That is not a hot take, that is the same development curve every great guard climbs. The deep shooting is what made her famous, but the floaters, the runners, and the pull-ups in the lane are what keep her dangerous on the nights the three is not falling. On Saturday, the three was not falling, and you could see precisely what he means.
Anderson, we have officially become the Connecticut Sun, where we try to drag teams down and muck up the game. It's ugly. Enjoy losing fans. Most of the new fans did not come to watch this garbage. That is a factual damn statement. That is a fact.
This might be the sharpest point he makes all night, and it carries an irony he never quite spells out. That he says the Fever had become the Connecticut Sun, a team that drags opponents into the mud and wins ugly, low-scoring rock fights. What he leaves out is that Stephanie White is the former head coach of that exact team. She built her name in Connecticut on suffocating defense and a slow, grinding half-court style. So, when he complains that Indiana now plays like the Sun, he is describing precisely what the front office went out and hired. They fired Christy Sides in October of 2024 and brought in White because they wanted a defensive backbone. The trouble is that the people packing Gainbridge Fieldhouse and tuning in by the millions did not fall for grinded-out defense. They fell for a fast, high-scoring three-point spectacle. And when that spectacle turns into a slog, the most loyal fans start to feel like they were sold one thing and handed another.
Way, Atlanta Dream, Indiana Fever, television rating 10 million, fake news, bullshit. I mean, come on, really? No. Number one, the rating hadn't been released yet. Number two, when it is released, no, it was on Amazon Prime. I will be shocked if that game got 1.5 million viewers.
Which brings us to the number, and the number is where he is most clearly right. Somebody pushed the claim that the Atlanta Dream and Indiana Fever game on Amazon Prime pulled 10 million viewers, and he calls it exactly what it is. That figure is invented. Consider what Amazon's WNBA package actually does. Prime's exclusive streaming games have averaged in the mid-hundreds of thousands, often somewhere between 500 and 600,000 viewers. They have not come close to 1 million. The Fever games that truly break records do not live on Prime at all. They air on broadcast and cable, on ABC and CBS, and even those ceiling out in the 2 to 3 million range. A single Fever game cracking 2.5 million is a headline event. So, a 10 million figure for a streaming game is not merely high, it would make a regular season WNBA broadcast on a streaming service larger than the NBA Finals and bigger than almost anything outside the NFL. He says he would be shocked if it cleared 1.5 million, and even that would shatter the Prime record by a wide margin. Then he makes the one point that should end the debate on its own: the official rating had not even been released yet. You cannot report a final number for a broadcast whose number does not yet exist. That is the piece worth sitting with because it stretches far past one game. The league's audience exploded over the past 2 years, and riding that same wave came a flood of accounts manufacturing statistics to win arguments online. Fake ratings, fake attendance, fake television numbers, all engineered to prove either that the league is the biggest thing in sports or that it is quietly collapsing depending on the agenda. Both sides do it, and the reality is more grounded and frankly more impressive than the fantasy. the WNBA set genuine viewership records in this era without anyone needing to fabricate a 10 million viewer stream, pull the camera back, and the night tells one coherent story. Indiana led the defending champions by double digits and lost by 8. They went cold. The Liberty marched to the line again and again, and the bench had no answer once New York ramped up the pressure. That is a coaching question, a roster question, and an officiating question braided together, and this host yanked on all three threads. On coaching, his nostalgia for the Christie Sides era is the surprising turn, because 18 months ago a massive chunk of this same fan base wanted Sides fired. They got their wish. The organization moved on from her after the 2024 season and replaced her with a former coach of the year. Now the loudest voices miss the old version of the team. That reveals something true about fandom. People rarely want a different coach in the abstract. They want their team to score 100 points and turn their superstar loose, and they will pin that wish on whichever name is not currently sitting on the bench. On the whistle, keep your receipts but keep your composure. A one-sided free throw night is evidence of a physical, aggressive opponent and a desperate team fouling to claw back long before it is evidence of anything sinister. If it repeats game after game after game, the pattern becomes the story worth telling. A single night is not a pattern, it is one data point, and Fever fans are well within their rights to start collecting them. On Clark, the fair read is that a real basketball lesson sits buried under the outrage. She shot poorly and still filled the box score with rebounds and assists. And the road forward is more pressure at the rim and more comfort in the mid-range, so a frozen three-point night cannot drag her whole game down with it. The minutes argument will smolder for as long as she is on the bench in the fourth, but a franchise that already watched her lose most of a season to injury has a defensible reason to handle the most valuable player in the sport with care, and beneath all the sarcasm, he lands on the line that truly matters: the building is not on fire. This team is 5-5. The season is barely a quarter finished. 10 games into a 44-game grind, a .500 record forged against a punishing early schedule is not a catastrophe. It is a sluggish start for a roster still absorbing a new system with a mountain of basketball left to fix it, but the tension he keeps circling is real, and it is not going anywhere. The Fever are trying to build a defensive grinded-out identity at the precise moment they became the most watched, most dissected show in the league. Those two ambitions are going to keep crashing into each other. Every ugly, low-scoring loss will feel like a betrayal to fans who came for fireworks. Every cautious decision about Clark's minutes will get read as something darker. And every phony number drifting across social media will make the real conversation that much harder to hold. So this is what I want from you: strip away the conspiracy and the fake ratings and stare at nothing but the basketball. Is this a coaching problem where Stephanie White's slow, defense-first style is simply the wrong fit for this roster and this audience? Or is it a roster problem where the talent around Clark and the depth on that bench is not good enough yet to close out the champions on their own floor? You cannot shrug and blame both equally and call that analysis. Choose one. If you believe White is the issue and the Fever erred by importing a Connecticut Sun defensive identity for a run-and-gun crowd, say it in the comments. If you believe the roster is the issue and no coach on earth steals this one in New York, say that instead. Tell me which it is. Tell me where I have got it wrong, and if you want the unfiltered breakdown of the next Fever game the second it ends, subscribe so it lands in your feed.